Nikki's right. We've been doing this for almost 5 years. And Avril, you have been a guest in the past, and we're really happy to have you back. You are a museum guide. You've been with the Oakland Museum, that modern museum in San Francisco that we don't usually name, and then you're also with the Sonoma Valley Museum of Art. But today you're going to be talking to us about this exhibition at the Oakland Museum of Dugan Aguilar. And I want to encourage everybody in the audience, we want some interaction on this. Feel free to put reactions to things in chat. We'll be looking at that. And we also invite you to unmute and share your thoughts as much as you'd like. So what do you got for us, Avril?
Okay, let's see what I can do here. Let's share the screen. That's always oh, here it is down here. Wait. Share. Okay, is it there? And
we can see it.
Yeah, can everybody see it? Yeah, okay. I'm doing this. Why? Okay, slideshow from beginning. There we are. So that's plain. Okay, so yeah, I want to talk to you today about a really interesting exhibition currently at the Oakland Museum called Born of the Bear Dance, and it's Dugan Aguilar's photos of native California. So Dugan Aguilar, who was born in 1947, and so he died in 2018, right? So he's generation a little older than I am, but you know, that I'm connected with. He is a Maidu, Pit River Walker River Paiute, and grew up in Susanville, which is up near Mount Lassen, way up north. So he's a photographer. As I said, he died in 2018, and his family offered his archive to the Oakland Museum in 2021. Now, Rodney and I were talking before, he asked how the museum got these photographs. Well, Oakland Museum has a huge photo archive, and you know, it has the archive of Dorothea Lange and so forth, but the situation that museums are in nowadays, they would not accept an archive like this from just anybody because it takes a lot of work. But this was so special, an indigenous photographer, so huge and such quality, and also fits in really well with the mission of the Oakland Museum to, you know, display work, artwork, history, and natural science of everybody, of all of California. So it's a really, I think you'll be impressed by these photographs. Let me tell you a little bit more about him. So someone, Dugan Aguilar is someone who had experienced, I guess you could say, both generational trauma and personal trauma. Both his parents were, right. Both his parents attended government boarding schools, right? So he suffered through that. And also he served in Vietnam. So the Vietnam War was an incredible time for him. He suffered from PTSD and Agent Orange, and he was the only surviving member of his platoon. But I'll show you, let me, a little, here he is, in front of the California Vietnam Vet Memorial in Sacramento. There he is. And here he is with a group of Native American vets in Susanville. So he was that's him right in the center, kneeling down. He was always very involved with this group. He was influenced by an older generation. His father and his uncle, I think, two uncles, were decorated World War II and Korean War veterans. And he himself, you know, grew up, he was an Eagle Scout, an athlete in high school, and then went into the Army. He then earned a BA in Industrial and Technology and Design from Cal State Fresno in 1973, and he attended photography classes at UNR in Nevada, Reno. So his life as a photographer honors the people that he grew up with, tribe's experience, but he did not want to focus on the trauma of their lives, which has been well documented elsewhere. He's interested in showing survival, continuing traditions, and just the life, the full life of the people he knows in Northern California. And it's interesting too. I had a quote from his wife who said initially his plan was to photograph every tribe in the United States, but he quickly realized that California by itself was a life's work. California, as you may know, I hope you know, was in the past had at least 100 different tribes, 400 languages, is one of the most intense concentrations of indigenous people in the United States. It's fascinating. So he is a photographer in the style, I would say, of Dorothea Lange, that is unlike what we call a street photographer, which are usually urban photographers who capture fleeting images as though the photographer is invisible. Sometimes even, I think, Cartier-Bresson painted the shiny parts of his camera black so you wouldn't notice it, and they sort of capture, steal even images of life. Dugan Aguilar, again, like Dorothea Lange, does not do that. He takes portraits, he works with people, he creates photographs rather than taking them. So I think you'll be impressed. His work is sensational photographically. I mean, they're great photographs if anybody took them, but they show us an aspect of life that we haven't maybe seen so much before in photography. So here we go. So he does landscapes. He does lots of portraits, and also he does photographs of ceremonies, particularly the bear dance. But this is a Tuolumne roundhouse, so you have to look at this for a second to figure out what's going on. But you can see at the bottom, this triangular sort of conical figure is the roundhouse, and it just there's kind of a story about this photograph that actually he was around with his camera, but somebody else, a friend of his, was there with a pickup truck kind of leaning on the truck. And he said, you know, if you look up, you're going to have a good view. And he did. And he took this wonderful photograph with the, you know, kind of the streaks of clouds above it and the trees coming in. Really makes the roundhouse look, I think, like a rock, just an element of nature. Yeah. So Rodney, I'm going to expect you to chime in whenever you like here, because you're.
Yeah. Well, I saw, I went to the exhibition last week, and seeing this picture and some other pictures of the roundhouses, I've known about them, but it really made me want to see it in person, and realize, oh, this is such an important part of their culture.
Yeah.
And it's so, I mean, it's actually a very modern kind of sculpture of sorts, I would say.
Yeah, it is. So here's another, this is like the inside view. So that was outside the roundhouse, but inside it and looking straight up, this is what you see. And this is fascinating because, I mean, who took this photograph? It could be anybody from Ansel Adams all the way on down. It's like a modern sculpture or something. But again, it's the formal qualities of the work, but also combined with what it's actually showing us. That's so interesting and so surprising. I think that's really a cool one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really cool view of, we kind of know what we're looking at, but it almost has a certain abstract quality.
It definitely has an abstract quality. This one is really large in the museum, right? Did you see it, Rodney? They have it.
Yeah, they blew it up.
Yeah.
They did that with a number of them, and it's clearly one of the most arresting images that he took.
Yeah. So let's go and look at some people, some portraits that he did. So this is Elsie Allen, who is not with us anymore, I believe, but she is super well known as a basket maker. And the Pomo up here in my area in Northern California, Sonoma, Lake County, Mendocino County, are the premier basket makers of indigenous all over the United States, I believe. And they make absolutely stunning baskets. Oakland has a large collection of them. And I've seen ones that are like this big, like the size of a nickel. They're unbelievable. And there's actually a high school in Santa Rosa named after Elsie Allen. It was cool.
Wow.
There she is with her product there. So this is interesting that the basket really takes prominence here, and she's a little further back with no background behind her, but that's what she's proud of. That's what she does, right? It's cool.
I do love the portrait of her. I love the way she's looking at us,
Mm-hmm.
and in kind of the expression on her face, You know, it's just a very it's not a blank expression. It's you can tell she's very proud of this work and she's very proud of her culture. You know,
Yeah,
it's a celebration, this
yeah,
image, I
yeah,
think.
yeah. I actually, Bernice has raised her hand.
Go
Bernice.
ahead, Bernice.
Hi, I was gonna say, so I love how, in the black and white photo, what she chose to wear. I mean, she could have gone with, museum black, all black. But I
Mhm.
love how it's not just, to me, it's not just a portrait of the basket, but also a portrait of her. But in no way does one sort of outshine the other. To me, I see both. And I like the fact that she's got dark clothes on and, the print is a light color and in contrast to the basket, which is a lighter color. And then we have the patterns, which are dark. And I love the composition.
Yeah, and now you're kind of in a way talking about what we love about black and white photography is the contrasting black and white and how that works and everything. And I like the fact that I think the basket is more prominent. It's sharper. Her face is a little bit softer. But you bring up something interesting, which is what she's wearing. Who knows? I mean, I don't know if he said, Elsie, I'm going to take your photograph on Thursday. Meet me at this time. And so she dressed for it, or she was someplace, he was someplace, and he just took the photograph. That I don't know. Given that it's a portrait, it's more considered than the kind of snapshot street photography we get, but it does make a nice contrast. And that brings up again, I mean, what is the skill of a photographer? It's to be in the right place at the right time with the camera focused, right? So this is a good moment with Elsie. That's cool.
There's a comment in chat from Sarah who calls out the prominence of her hands.
Yeah, you're right. Her hands too. Yeah, yep, yep. So that kind of helps us realize, if we didn't already, that this is a handmade basket, right? And it's just beautiful. Oh, great. Let's see what more we can find here. Oh, here's just another landscape shot of a valley oak, right? Beautiful tree there.
And it's not just a beautiful tree, it's also a very important tree to Native Californian culture because acorns were a staple of their diet.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's an important tree, but yeah, for that reason. Very good, Rodney. Thank you. Yeah.
Wait, can I just pipe up? It's Bernice.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't raise my hand because I didn't want you to go to the next slide before I had a chance to say something.
Okay.
I love how, to me, the tree is quite symmetrical. I don't know what the oak trees look like in your neighborhood. Some of the oak trees in my neighborhood, they're not as beautifully symmetrical. I mean, it's not perfectly symmetrical, but it's a tree. I mean, it's a tree. But the general shape of it and with the shadow and everything.
It could be almost like the Oakland tree, the icon. You know, it's a very it's a great image of an oak tree.
Yes.
Actually, that's an interesting point of view because I've been noticing there's a lot of them around here, and they are odd looking, strange sort of things. And it reminds me that, like in the arts and crafts era, the Matthews and those people, they loved oak trees compared to pine trees. Pine trees pretty much go up straight, but oak trees have so much movement in them and they're so irregular in shape that they really like that. And they documented them a lot. They put a lot of them in their designs and so forth. But yeah, you're right. This one is probably a very important oak. It's
right. This looks like the supermodel of oak trees, right? If you're gonna put, if this is like the cover model of oak trees, right?
yes, absolutely. Oh my goodness. Let's see. I'm not even sure what order these are in. So this is a surprise to see what comes up next. Okay. Oh, okay. You see why the self-portrait?
Yeah. So yeah, it's called self-portrait. I really loved this in the museum. Does anybody get a sense why is it how is this a self-portrait?
It's not a trick question.
You have to look a little more closely.
Closely.
I was going to say, it looks like the photographer's about ready to hit the shutter. It's Bernice.
Yeah, it's his shadow, right? His shadow is on the grass there, and he's about to hit the shutter. And there's a photograph almost exactly like this of Ansel Adams. And in fact, Aguilar took a photography session, not from Ansel Adams, but from one of his instructors, one of his followers. So it's kind of interesting. It's sort of like a photographer's thing, their photographer's meme almost, to put yourself that way in the image. But the image also is really interesting. I don't know where are Buena Vista Peaks, but it almost looks like the Sierra Buttes or something, because there's like mountains behind the trees there, kind of craggy looking mountains. It's very cool.
Yeah.
I love the grass. I like everything about the composition, but it's cool to have him in it that way. Yeah. Okay.
So he's a student of Ansel Adams at one point, and there is this great exhibition at SF MoMA right now on the F-64 group.
Yeah.
And do you think this would fit in with that? It does seem like it has a lot of the qualities that they were going for.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think anybody who has an SLR camera learned from F-64. I mean, then they go on and do other things, but I think the lessons of those people about the sharpness of an image and doing exactly what you can do with a camera, as opposed to painting or anything else, it probably filters down to everybody, I imagine.
Yeah, and like he uses the pattern of the grasses to soften his shadow, so that it's a little hidden. It's a really wonderful image.
Yeah, it's subtle. Yeah, that's cool. That's good. Oh, let's see. Oh, here we go. Now we'll get into some people images. So generally, when he would go to gatherings like this, he would concentrate on photographing the people rather than the ceremonies. Nevertheless, further on in the presentation, I have some pictures of activities going on at the celebrations, but here they are at the Roundhouse. I think this is the Grinding Rock Roundhouse that is in Amador County near Jackson. And it's a state park, so you can go there and see it. But really just like a great group of people, many of them in their traditional outfits and others in modern clothing, just sitting there as a group looking at us. They're very cool. Yeah. From the 90s.
Yeah, and we have a comment
Okay.
related to the basket weaving from Gail. She says a friend held a basket weaving birthday party in Sausalito. And her attempt was 3 inches across. All I can say is basket weaving is wicked hard.
Yeah, I think it is. It's funny that it used to be sort of like, oh, you don't take physics in college, you take basket weaving, and it's actually very difficult. It's not a simple thing to do, especially these tight weaves they get. It's amazing. Yeah, so there we are. There's some of our friends. Oh, so we go from one side to the other side. I love this, Mr. Easy Rider here, his cousin Fred in Truckee in the 80s. So just like he and his friends and people are part of the modern world, what can you say? It's just a great image. Any comments about the vehicle there, Rodney, at all?
Yeah, it does. It is kind of like a little counterculture.
Yeah.
And one of the things in the land acknowledgments that we've been saying is we recognize the fact not only that Native Americans lived on the land and never ceded it to the use that it has today, but that they continue to be part of our culture. Right. But they haven't been really seen. And I think that's part of his art, is to have us see those people, think more about who they are, what their lives are like. And I just, I love this, Fred with the wind going through his hair, and obviously loves our state of California. He's riding this bike around.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I like this a lot. It's kind of interesting because, yeah, he does look a bit like a hippie. And of course, hippies were totally into indigenous culture in their way too, so there's like a bit of a crossover or something there. It's cool. I like it.
and it's also got the great angles that we always like to see in our photographs. We like our diagonals, right?
Yeah, we do like a diagonal. Yeah, and then what do you call that behind him? The barrier. He's in trouble.
The parallel lines.
Very, very horizontal. And then we've got the diagonal going on, right?
And Gail is noting the lack of a helmet. That I have to say, I saw that too.
You notice it, but yeah, in the 80s, I mean, things were, I don't think they had those, restrictions in. That's funny.
Would this still be a good photograph if he was wearing a helmet?
It would be so much less.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's,
the wind in his long hair is part of the image here, I think. Yeah, it's fun. Good spotting, right? The thing
and
I love about this is people notice things that I didn't, it didn't strike me that he didn't have a helmet on. That now even my 4-year-old granddaughter on her little teeny bicycle has a helmet on. So, that's better. Okay. Okay. A wonderful photograph of his wife Liz in Death Valley in the 70s. So this is an early one, but boy, he's got the eye for landforms there and talking about it being practically an abstract, it's just a really cool image, really wonderful image. And she's just there. I mean, interestingly, her legs form a triangle that kind of reflects what's behind her. And she's just sitting there. I guess that's a purse in front of her, reading probably, just totally comfortable in this incredible and possibly inhospitable environment. What do you think? I don't know. It's cool.
yeah, it's a real contrast of the human form with these geological forms in the wonderful texture of the land that we see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think Bernice.
Okay, I was gonna say, I think with her sitting there and the shape that her legs are creating, it creates a nice balance.
Mhm.
For the top portion where we see those triangles, I mean, if you just took your thumb or something, whatever you have handy, and sort of blocked her out, to me the photograph just doesn't work as well.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Well, for one thing, it shows scale. I mean,
Yes.
you wouldn't quite know what you were looking at or how big it was or if it was a close up without her being there. But yeah, I think so. Again, I think this is also what you see with a good photographer is that formal aspects of it and what it's showing are kind of blending in a way, right? There's kind of, yeah, I like that one. Don't you think?
And yet there's like no rule that he's following that says, to do this. It's, the rule of thirds doesn't really apply to this photograph. It's just that he has this eye and it tells him, I think this is going to be an interesting image.
Well, I think that's it. I think photographers, yeah, the idea of an eye that you have, and also, as I said, that just at the right place at the right time. I mean, this obviously the background is not going to move. He could spend some time composing this if he liked, but it is interesting. We know that anyone can take a photograph, and yet Ansel Adams said it was harder to make a masterpiece in photography than in any other media. I don't know if that's true. That's his opinion. But yeah, there's something about understanding what it's going to look like. Yeah, that's cool. I like this one. All right.
Lorna comments, we talk about contrast, but she says yes, but she fits right in.
She fits right in. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's part of it. Yeah, she does. Very cool. Great comments. All right. Oh, okay. So here we have the old and the new, right? We have somebody, Maya Marufo, of Robinson Rancheria, Pomo Indian, and there she is on the banks of the Sacramento River with Canal Bridge and whatever else in the background there. So a really interesting contrast. Wow. What do we have to say about this?
Would we think of this as a political kind of statement of sorts? The contrast, like, oh, this is, one of the people who is their ancestors lived on this land,
Right,
and
right.
now they're in this urban landscape.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
And
not a blunt political statement, but it certainly makes you think about
no,
about.
as you say, it makes you think about the land acknowledgement movement that we have and so forth. It's also interesting. I don't know what those grasses are that she is standing in, but I do know that there's an there's an issue with basket makers, indigenous basket makers, being able to get a hold of their materials nowadays because they're plants and there are places where they grow and they become wineries and they become this and that and in private hands, and it's difficult for them to even find their material. So this is interesting. Of course, I don't know if that's what she's surrounded by, but that's what it made me think of, that there she is. She's in the foreground in nature, such as it is, and everything behind is going on. Yeah, and love the headdress she's wearing and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, Sarah points out that you can see the Capitol dome in the background. It's kind of to the left of the tallest building in the photograph.
Oh,
And I
okay.
hadn't noticed that. That's really
Yeah.
a good observation.
Yeah, that is sharp looking. Look at, can I do this? Yes, okay. Let me see if I can get that.
Zoom in.
Everything is jumping around here.
I think if you,
I'm trying to get the enlarger, the magnifying glass, and it's not coming up for me. I'm having a problem with my mouse today. Anyway, okay, yeah, back here. There it is.
yeah, that I believe that
Oh,
is the Capitol.
yeah, it's very small. It's dwarfed by these buildings that are probably banks or something, right? Yeah. Oh, interesting. Interesting. That is, yeah, good. That's a lovely image. But I agree, this there's a statement, a subtle one perhaps being made here. It's cool. Just a couple kids, named undated photograph, but that's a lovely one. And this may be some of the very basket making materials I was thinking about there. But, there. It's interesting too, thinking of portraiture, both in painting and in photography, the idea of the direct on look. I mean, often you do things 3/4 or something like that, but when somebody's looking directly at you like this, it has an effect. And I actually like the way her glasses are reflecting the light. You can't quite see her. Yeah.
One of the things they call out in the exhibition is that he spent a lot of time with his subjects.
Yeah.
He wasn't just taking their picture. He formed relationships with them, and there was a trust that they had with him that they wouldn't have had with some photographer especially from outside of the community who would come in.
Yeah, that's yes, I'm sure that's true. And he also was known to give portraits to people, give copies of the portraits that he made to the people who were in them and so forth. Yeah. So again, as I said, kind of like Dorothea Lange, creating a bond with the people he was photographing, so that it's it's kind of a process involving two people rather than just the photographer just taking an image. It's interesting how many words associated with photography are a little bit violent, like shooting, and so forth. But we don't take that too seriously. But he's somebody who's kind of working against that in some ways. Yeah, good. We'll go on.
A question, I think, from Gail. Are those tattoos on her face?
I am guessing that they are. I don't know, but I think that's probably something traditional that's on her face. Yeah, I think so.
I think there might have been at least one other person with something like that in the exhibition.
I don't know. I've seen that in Maori people in New Zealand and so forth. They have tattoos on the face like that. So I don't know for sure. There's a really great outfit going on Sarah Keller there in 1995 with the roundhouse in the background, and just her look there is so proud and so tall, and it's just this lovely image, really showing. I don't know, sometimes they call this regalia, what people wear for the ceremonies, or just traditional costumes as opposed to modern ones.
Sarah thinks that she might have kind of a little bit of a hippie look to her.
Well, as I say, the connection between hippies and indigenous people is well documented, but yeah, she does have a little bit of that going on. And it was the 90s, but that's, beyond the hippie days. This is lovely. Grand Marshal of the Greenville Gold Digger Days Parade. So there we got a couple of things going on, because the gold diggers were not good to the indigenous people who were there, right? And so here we have, and I love the young girl giggling in the car, probably with her grandma or great grandma, who is the Grand Marshal of the parade. So I love the little delicate umbrella sunshade, and it's got to be a Cadillac, that she's in. sort of a combination of old and new there.
And the grandmother looks very serious.
She does. She's taking it seriously for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But so there's a more contrast as well. Bernice, go ahead.
Nick, I have to say, I love how Grandma has her scarf on to protect her hair. I just love that. My mother would die if I say this, and this is recorded, but it reminds me of like something my mother would have done, right? I want my hair to look nice, and you're going to be driving me in this car, and I don't know how fast you're going to go. I don't want it to ruin my hair. I worked very hard at this, you know. But I love how Grandma, she's got, you know, this is a prepared woman, right? She's protecting herself from the sun. She's protecting herself from the wind. So when she gets out of the car, she can still look cute.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I wonder what she thinks of cousin Fred riding around on his motorcycle without a helmet.
Oh,
Was fun. But I mean, I love the delicate sunshade. I mean, you don't even call that an umbrella because it's not, it's a sunshade, right? And it comes from a kind of Victorian sort of tradition, a completely different tradition, very delicate and ladylike. I just love it. Somebody else have a comment there? Rodney, did you see one?
Let me read that. We see, it was Sarah's comment about the hippie. It was about the earlier photograph.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so this is a lovely image. I love the little girl. She knows she's being photographed and she says, dude, you know.
Well, and we also have a good contrast of black and white. Makes me wonder, like, do you think he was someone who was very adept at darkroom techniques? You know, dodging and burning to get these kinds of contrasts.
Don't know that. Again, he is not exactly an unknown quantity, but he's not somebody whose work has been around, exhibited very much. So I personally don't have much information on him, but I did not mention perhaps that the archive that they received, Oakland received from his family was 25,000 negatives and 6,000 prints. So even 6,000 prints, to go through them to create an exhibit like this, which maybe has 100, I don't know, images in it, but the 25,000 negatives. So it requires a lot of work to catalog all this and look at what it is and, you know everything about it. But there we go. And the exhibit itself was developed with Native partners, groups who advised on how to present things and how to describe them and so forth. And this is good. Okay, what more? One of these things. Next. Okay, I did something. Yeah. Okay, so here are some photographs that are not in the exhibition. They came from a book that I'll tell you about at the end, that he took showing the dance. Now, this is called the Maydew Big Time, and this is something that was celebrated at the Oakland Museum. There's other places in Northern California, 2 or 3 of them, where they have similar celebrations for tribes doing the bear dance and so forth. I don't know if that still goes on at Oakland. I'm not aware of it, but at least in the 90s, that was going on. So apparently Dugan Aguilar himself, as he grew up, as I said, he was a high school athlete, Eagle Scout. I mean, clearly he was indigenous, but his family didn't seem to be too into Native culture. He came to that later on as an adult and through his photography. But he always attended the bear dance. So that is part of the title of the exhibition. So the bear dance is a spring ritual in which the 2 powerful creatures that hibernate in the winter, which are the bear and the rattlesnake, they rise up in spring, hungry and dangerous to people who are out and about. So the tribes people pay homage to these creatures and give prayers, thanks to Earth Maker, and protect them from the bears and the snakes. So they're honoring the bear. There they are. And here's some singers at a bear dance in Susanville. And interesting, they're it's like young guys, right? You can imagine seeing these guys anyplace, or on a motorcycle or anyplace else. So this is really a nice picture, I think, of how the culture is alive with, it's not just old people who are dying off, young people are involved in it too. And it's a lovely photograph for a number of other reasons, you know.
They're not dressed uniformly, they have different, and you see this in some of the other photographs too, a different array of dress preferences, but they're still together as a community.
Yeah, some in modern clothes and some in traditional. Yeah, and they're together as a community. It's cool. And I wanted to show you this. This is bear dance. So it's one of the dancers playing the bear, disguised as the bear, right? And here's another one that shows an elder brushing the bear with wormwood. It's probably appeasing him or protecting us from him in some way. So again, I think these photographs are a little bit unusual. Generally, he likes to focus on the participants and give them to us, but I thought they were fascinating and I wanted to show them. So here we go, some more things up. Okay. So here's Jennifer Bates in 97. And actually, I discovered completely by accident, by looking on the Oakland website, that she gave a basket making exhibition last fall, November 2024, at the Oakland Museum. And this is one of the May Do Big Times that was held at the Oakland Museum. And that's a really, really unusual headdress she's wearing, right? I'm accustomed to seeing feathers and so forth on them, but this is really unusual. I don't know.
Yeah, I really like it. It's very three-dimensional.
Yeah, it's certainly three-dimensional, certainly three-dimensional. And here is Frank LaPena, who was a mentor of Dugan Aguilar's and who is himself a pretty well-known painter, artist, writer. We've talked about indigenous artists and where they are and where we see them, and he's one of them. I like this. I like how he's looking off. And this is an example of a photograph, a portrait where he's not looking directly at us, but he's looking off, and that creates, I don't know, in the contrast with the feathers on the other side, the diagonal that we love, right, Rodney? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's a very intriguing headdress.
Yes, certainly, certainly. I mean, actually, seeing the variety of the kinds of regalia they wear, the headdresses alone, is really fascinating. It makes you wonder, well, how they're certainly symbolic. Does each tribe have a different one or whatever? Don't know that much about it. Oh, here's
Paco says, I'm really intrigued when it comes to headwear. I mean, I kind of look at these and I wonder, were people wearing things like this in my area? I live on the land of the Lishan Ohlone, and I would love to know more about, what were their cultural, what was their distinctive headdress here?
I don't know. That's really interesting. I would imagine they did have things. I mean, yeah, but there's again the next generation is ready to go here. It's adorable. All right. What more do we have? Oh, that's the end. Oh, okay. So this is, I put this on here. It's a book about his photography that is available, I imagine, from Heyday Books, and I got some of the images. And talking about a headdress, there's a lovely one there. There we have it. Those of you who are in San Francisco, it's worth noting that you can get to the Oakland Museum on BART. It's near the Lake Merritt BART station. So it's, and as always, cool to look at these things, but they look better in person, right, Rodney? We always stress going to a museum is.
Yeah, especially really for photography. We see the images on the screen, but they're really not the same thing.
Oh, and yet it's odd, isn't it? I mean, you would expect that with a painting where you're not going to get the texture and so forth, but even photographs, they're sharper, they're better in person. So if you have a chance to go, I would certainly recommend it. It's a wonderful group of photographs that you'll enjoy looking at and getting an insight into a world that is not exactly invisible, but we are maybe unaware of it, but it's there and it's flourishing as we can see. And there you go. So if anybody has any questions, that's the end of the presentation.
I'll make a couple comments. First of all, this book that you display is from Heyday Books. Heyday Books was founded by Malcolm Margolin, who really, he wrote a book called The Ohlone Way about the Native American groups of the Bay Area. He said when he wrote that book, he was just planning to do, he was just interested in like who were the Native Americans that lived in our area, but it sparked this like lifelong passion of his. And so he's published many books, and he has a journal that talks about Native American cultures. There's in the exhibition, there's a letter that he wrote recommending Dugan Aguilar to to become the official photographer of the Basket Weaver organization. So that's one of the things that I've learned as a tour guide. We started saying these land acknowledgements, but I always felt like, well, those are just words. We got to do more than that. And so I've really tried to study more and have better depth of knowledge about these cultures. And this exhibition is just the perfect example of that. It's not enough just to acknowledge this past, but we have to understand this culture that our greater culture kind of absorbed, but we need to protect it. We need to call it out and make it vibrant.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, having moved to Sonoma, I've become more aware of it because the culture is all around, and there's lots of exhibitions and things that you can see and hear about. Lake County, Sonoma County, there's a really important presence. There's an exhibition, I think it's Santa Rosa Junior College, they still call it that has a museum that has Elsie Allen's baskets in it and so forth. So there's a lot of resources you can call on if you're interested up here, and starting to be more in the Bay Area as well, for sure. Anyway.
Yeah, Sarah mentions that there's a very good collection of Native American baskets and art at the Gorman Museum at UC Davis.
Oh, really? Okay.
If you have a chance to stop in Davis, go to that museum.
Yeah.
Gail says, thank you, Avril and Rodney. Had never heard of Dugan Aguilar. Gorgeous photography. What a talent. Thank you for bringing new to me artists and art to me yet again.
Yeah. It does. It just go to show you somebody. I certainly had, when they said at Oakland, we got this great archive of photographs by Dugan Aguilar. I said, I don't know who that is, and yet this wonderful resource is beautiful stuff. So there's other things probably out there that have yet to be discovered, and that seems to me to be the number one task of kind of art critics and art historians these days, is bringing out people who have been ignored before. Anyway, here they are. So thank you all for your comments, which are so interesting, and for finding things, seeing things in those photographs, like the state capitol. I didn't see that before in the one photograph. It's always really interesting to talk with people about these works. So great.
And Avril, I just want to thank you, because you're the one who recommended that we do a program on this, and that's what spurred me to go to the exhibition, and I'm just so glad I did.
Okay, great. Good.
Comment from Gail. I inherited a large, beautiful pine needle basket from my mom. I treasure it. She says. And Lorna says, fascinating. Thank you. I'm inspired to go to the Oakland Museum to see the show. We always like hearing that. They also have a fab collection of Dorothea Lange's work. That certainly is true.
They do.
It's a great museum. And there's so many other interesting things there too,
Yeah, absolutely. It's big, and it's a really good cafe as well.
Yeah, and also the sculpture garden. I don't think you even need to have a ticket to go through that.
It's free to go through the sculpture garden, and it's really cool. Yeah, no, it's a nice place. Apparently, do you know this, Rodney? When it was built, that was intended to be an arts neighborhood, and other things never took off. So it's kind of marooned down there by itself, which is maybe why people don't visit it more than they do, right? Everybody goes as a child.
Yeah.
Go, right? But
Field trip.
it's in a little bit of an odd location, but it's a wonderful place, great resource in the East Bay. So
Very, very accessible by public transportation too, because it's right next to the Lake Merritt BART station.
Right, right. So good. Okay, well,
Well, Avril, thanks for coming on Art Viewing Adventures. It just so happens that I think we got you back again in early March.
yeah, I think so.
Talking, right? Kara Walker's coming up.
That's a completely different, different look altogether.
Different look, different mood. But you've done a lot of interesting research on that, and that I've been kind of grappling with it since it opened up. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your take on it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's grapple worthy, shall we say.
I think I've come to agree, but the key is kind of knowing more about the context.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah. Actually, it's entirely consistent with her body of work, what she's done. And if you don't have an idea about that, it can be a little challenging to make sense of what she's doing there.
Which is true of a lot of modern art, but this in particular, and especially following something like the Diego Rivera mural that had been there, it's just very, very different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
So
Well,
we'll look forward to having you back. Thanks, Avril, for doing this. Any last thoughts from folks in the audience?
I am so fascinated about your artworks, Avril.
yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Glad to hear that, Paco. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know you do a lot of other programs on art, Avril. So we're really lucky to have you. I think I will turn it back to you, Nikki, to tell us about what's coming up on the community living campaign. I know there's a Richie Unterberger program a little bit later today. Nikki, you want to unmute and turn your camera on and
oh man. Let's see, there's something with my video that my video can't come on. My video, you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. Uh-oh.
Okay, wait, hold on a second. Let's fix that.
Okay.
Okay, try that. Try that.
Okay, let me try that. Start my video.
There we go.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you. Good to be back again. That was a really, really interesting program. Thank you so much. And it's, great when this program shows so much appreciations towards, people of color. I really enjoy those and learn so much about, the different cultures that are so vibrant, so important, especially now when, there's so many things happening.
When diversity is
Yes.
under attack. And in the art world, we can't let that happen. We don't want a monoculture in the art world like we had in the past.
Right. So it's really important to bring, these artists forward. Not that the Native Americans or immigrants are the opposite of the immigrants. They were the original
First peoples.
So I'm really, really happy that you were here today. And also want to highlight again that Lorraine Nakata Garcia is at the Mission Cultural Center, and she and the group of women that she has done art with that have thrived over, I would say, close to 50 years, are very well represent the movements that we've all been involved with that we're struggling to fight for now. So that'd be wonderful if you can take a look at her exhibit. I think I put the info in the chat.
Yeah, you've sent me some info. I'm gonna
Yeah,
look
send you some info. Yeah. So yeah, and then the future things coming up with community living and is
And we
tonight.
got Richie Unterberger tonight. It's talking about Stevie
Wonder. What could be better than that? So that'll be really exciting. And then we continue with our programming around tech, about writing, recalling your memories and writing about them, which is a wonderful experience for many people. Our exercise programs. I have an exercise program in Midtown Terrace, which is near Forest Hill. It's free exercise for seniors, and we really emphasize the things that are important to seniors: balance, weights. Not so much cardio, but just, the practical things to get through every day. So you're welcome to look online and find out where those programs are. So the community living campaign continues to thrive. Olivia and I will be hosting a Cesar Chavez event at the end of March. We just got word of our speaker that we're so thrilled to introduce, and that would be Richard Ibarra. Richard Ibarra grew up as a young man with the Chavez family. He was a college football star, big Chicano guy, right? And the farm worker organization asked him to be a bodyguard to Cesar Chavez. So he said, sure. He went for it. And he got really attached to the union, and he was part of that movement. He married one of the Chavez daughters. So he knows, the personal side of their story, and he knows the movement. So he's going to talk all about that on March 28th at Glen Park. So I'll let you know more about that as the time gets closer. But we're thrilled to have somebody of his caliber with the history, behind him, share that with us. So Community Living Campaign, we try to stay on the cutting edge of bringing important topics to you and things that help seniors and people with disabilities thrive. So I'm happy
Okay,
that
well,
you're here.
great, Nikki. And we'll see everybody, I think it's in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
For
Yeah.
the Carol Walker show, I'll be doing again with Avril. And Avril, thanks again for this today, and looking forward to working with you again in a couple weeks.
Yeah, welcome everybody for being here, especially my good friend Tomasita Medal. She came on today, and she's been so active with student movements, with starting way back with the strike at San Francisco State, and has been supportive and mentoring students and young people since then, and has been very instrumental in the art world when it came to saving the museums, working on the Great Highway, having access through JFK Drive in Golden Gate Park. She has been a real leader on that side of the art world, not just the art, but access to the art, which is vitally important. So Tomasita, yay, thank you for coming today.
Great. All right. And thanks again, Jennifer, for being our technical moderator. We'll see everybody in a couple weeks.
Bye.
Oh, bye, Nikki. Bye,
Bye.
Rodney. See you
Yeah.
tonight.
Bye, Avril.
Bye, Avril.
Bye, Paco.
Yeah, my pleasure.